Happy Tuesday! Like I said yesterday, I am moving forward with some review. Again, it says chapter 2, that's because that's where this stuff is predominantly found, but you can find it all throughout your book. I forgot to include in last videos to remember these properties. So you've got the commutative, the associative, and the distributive. The commutative is where you can move stuff around. The associative is where you can, when it's all either addition or all multiplication, you can move the parentheses to different groups and it doesn't matter. And then distributive is where you take something on the outside the parentheses and you distribute it to both things inside. So here you can see both B and C have A. Okay, moving forward with this, you're gonna get to see a couple of these in action. So you've got solving equations. So I did pick some of the harder equations because I wanted to make sure that we understood what was going on. I'm also going to review what identity equations are and what contradiction equations are. So keep this in mind that some of these may be identities, some may be contradictions. I'm going to show you that. I do also have absolute value here that I'm going to go over as well. So I'm trying to get a couple different types of problems in here. Okay, so I know you guys hate seeing these where they've got the variables on opposite sides. So I'm going to break this down for you. I'm trying to get x alone. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this x over here, so the 5x, I want to move it over here. It's a positive here, so I have to subtract it. I have to make sure I do that from both sides because we want to keep the equation balanced. So I've got 8 minus 5, which is 3x, bring down my plus 3, and bring down my plus 9. Now it's a simple subtraction. So, well, it's a simple equation to solve. It's one of the ones that you've been doing. So we're going to subtract 3, and we have 3x equals 6. And I thought I left myself more space. I apparently didn't. So we'll go up here, we divide both sides by 3, and we get x equals 2. Because 3 plus 3 is 6, 3 times 2 is 6. Okay? So this was 3 times what gives me 6, 3 times 2 gives me 6. Now, if we look over to this right side, we can see we have to do some distribution here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I've got 2x plus 6 minus 8 equals 6x minus 6 times 7, which is 42. Because, again, I know what's going on, and there's a mosquito biting me. So, okay. So here we can see I'm going to want to first combine this. So positive 6 minus 8 is negative 2. So I've got 2x minus 2 equals 6x minus 42. I'm going to bring my 2x to the other side by subtracting it. And I have negative 2 equals 4x minus 42. I'm going to add 42 to both sides. Again, I thought I left myself space for this. So I'm going to end up with negative 2 plus 42 is 40 equals 4x. Divide both sides by 4 and I am left with 10 equals x. Okay, I thought I had left the contradiction on there, but I hadn't. A contradiction is when you end up with something that is not true. So something like 0 equals negative 5. An identity is when you end up with like 6x equals 6x. Okay, or 0 equals 0. So this is identity, and this is contradiction. Basically, identities mean it's true. When you look in the mirror, you are seeing your identity. It is who you are, whereas a contradiction is something that is not true. It contradicts themselves. Okay, so let's move on to absolute value. So for absolute value, everybody always wants to go, oh, cool, I add the 4 to both sides, and then I have the absolute value of 3x. No, 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 no. Once you get the absolute value by itself, you need to make sure there is nothing else with it on that side of the equal sign. You now have to split it. So I have to sit here and say 3x minus 4 equals 2. And I also have to say negative 3x plus 4 equals 2. So all I did there is I switched both the signs of these. So this was positive, I made it negative. This was negative, I made it positive. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. I'm going to have 3x equals 6. When I divide by 3, I end up with x equals 2. I'm going to underline that. Okay, here I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. I don't need to write that out. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. I'm going to have negative 3x equals negative 2. Okay, when I divide this out, I end up with x equals negative 2 over negative 3, which is the same as saying positive 2/3. Now, I'm going to show you how we have to plug this back into the original equation to make sure that it works. So I'm going to do that real quick. I've got absolute value of 3 times 2 minus 4 equals 2. Okay, 3 times 2 is 6, minus 4 equals 2. So I've got 6 minus 4 is absolute value of 2 equals 2. That is correct. So here, I can cross off the 3 and the 3, and I have absolute value of 2 minus 4 equals 2. Absolute value of negative 2 equals 2. So both of these answers are correct. If one of them is not correct, it would be what is considered to be an extraneous solution. In other words, it's a solution that we can't use for this problem. Okay, let's work on this other one. So the first thing you can see here is my absolute value is not alone. Okay, it's got a minus 3 and it's being multiplied by 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this minus 3. So it is negative, so I'm going to add it to both sides. 7 plus 3 is 10. Now, I can't distribute the 2 because this is absolute value, not parentheses. So I have to divide both sides by 2. And I have absolute value of x plus 1 equals 5. So now I'm going to do x plus 1 equals 5. And I'm going to do negative x minus 1 equals 5. Subtract my 1. I've got x equals 4. That's my first answer. Add my 1, negative x equals 6. Gotta do x equals negative 6, because here it's a negative x and a positive 6. I can actually just switch the signs, so I can make it a positive x and a negative 6. This is essentially multiplying the entire equation by a negative 1 to move the negative sign so that I have a positive equation. So we are going to look at this. So I'm going to plug this in. Absolute value of 4 plus 1 equals 5. Oh wait, we have to plug it back into the original. That's right, we gotta plug it back into the original. So 2 times 4 plus 1, absolute value of 4 plus 1. Actually, I don't see why we have to do that. Let's plug it into the solved one. So 4 plus 1 equals 5. So the absolute value of 5 equals 5. That is correct, so 4 is our answer. Okay, now here I have absolute value of negative 6 plus 1 equals 5. Negative 6 plus 1 is negative 5, and the absolute value of negative 5 is a positive 5. So both of these work in this situation. Okay, so that is all for today. Make sure you don't forget these properties right here, and I will see you guys tomorrow on Wednesday.